It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
Zag Insiders Jim Meehan and John Blanchette step away from the paper and up to the microphone to give you the biggest storylines. It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders podcast.
Here we go.
All the preliminaries are over. Then going back to craziness, the non-conference season, the WCC season, and league tournament. It's always said that it's about the journey and not the destination, but this is kind of where journey and destination collide, the NCAA basketball tournament. And it begins for the Gonzaga Bulldogs on Thursday afternoon at 1:15 in Portland against Georgia State. TNT handling the telecast for those of you who aren't scrambling for tickets or enough money to gas up the car. For second straight year, Gonzaga is the overall number one seed, hoping that translates into being the last team standing after the Final Four in New Orleans. Welcome to another edition, the NCAA Tournament Edition 1.0 of the Zags Basketball Insiders, brought to you by the Spokesman-Review. If Thursday and Friday of this week each year are the two best basketball days on earth, then the 4 days prior are the best basketball talking days. And what with the outrage over snubs in the bracket, the disdain over misseeding, they're wrangling over which region is the toughest, and just the sheer anticipation of the games coming up. We'll do our share of that kind of talking today. Among our august group, we have Richard Fox, steeped in Gonzaga basketball for 2 decades now, more than 2 decades now, first as a player, then radio analyst, and now on regional telecasts of the Bulldogs. We have Jim Meehan, the Review's veteran Gonzaga beat writer, and 2021 Washington Sportswriter of the Year. I'm John Blanchette, once columnist for the Review, and whose employ I haven't missed an NCAA tournament in person since the Zags themselves missed in 1998, but that streak comes to an end this year.
Gas up that car, John.
I don't think my car would make it even if I could afford the gas, so we've got a lot of ground to cover, looking back and ahead. But before we do, I kind of wanted to put it to Richard. Take us back to your playing days at Gonzaga. What was this week like? I know there's an opponent to prepare for, just like every week of the regular season, but how different is the vibe and the challenge in keeping all that anticipation from bubbling over?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was obviously a different time in Gonzaga's history. I was watching the live reveal, and San Francisco was, I think, the last pod to be announced. We were that my junior year, and we were an at-large. And I remember we were in Billy Greer's basement watching. And I'm thinking to myself, I transferred from Colorado. I came here to play in the tournament, and we had a really bad end of the year. And when we saw our name go up, I mean, I think it's the first and only time, Mark, you and I have ever hugged. I think I had one point Billy in my arms, just like the elation. And I saw that with San Francisco. I mean, we all did. So it was just a different deal. It just wasn't expected. Certainly everyone thought it was a viable outcome every year, but it's not like now where it's just, you chalk it up in August. Hey, this is a Final Four team, or this is a team that's going to make a deep run. And then the week itself, honestly, John, I'm trying to think back and remember. It was just exciting. Everything about it was a bit different. You had a little bit more attention. The NCAA does a great job of making it a very unique experience. Back then, we really didn't have a lot to lose. So we were a pretty relaxed group. You were happy to be there, and you were hoping to maybe put a few games together. But we certainly didn't have the expectation that this group has now, or the groups the last 5-7 years have had, which is it's not just enough to get there, and everyone expects you to win at least 3 games. We were hoping to win 3 games. So it's certainly different now. I'm not sure it's apples to apples, but it was a ton of fun, and one of those life experiences that a long time from now, I'll remember the games we played in the tournament in a way that I won't remember most of the games we played.
Yeah. We'll jump head first into the Zags in the NCAA tournament and as many aspects as we can get to in just a minute. We did want to take a quick spin back through the WCC tournament of last week, which the Bulldogs won for the 20th time in history. and the 19th time in the last 23 years. They held off San Francisco in the semifinals 81-71, turned back St. Mary's 82-69 in the championship game. Both of those teams will join the Zags in the NCAA bracket. The Dons got a 10th seed against Murray State. The Gales will play the winner of Wyoming and Indiana, that first 4 game. Both of those games are in the East region, but St. Mary's will actually be in the Portland pod with Gonzaga. Jim, the USF game didn't generate much drama until the last 6 minutes when the Dons cut into a 20-point deficit. But whether the gap was 20 points or 8 points, the difference was always seemed to be the job that the Zags were doing on Jamari Bouye.
Yeah, played a big part in that win. The kid is a really just him and Khalil Shabazz are just great. That's a great backcourt. And then you add in, what other shooting they can get out of the 3 spot, which has been pretty good all year. It's a good backcourt all the way around. And Bouye just had a tough night. He missed, I think, all 7 of his threes. And Todd Golden, the head coach at San Francisco, mentioned when he went into the lane, which is usually how he gets his game going. Penetration and draw a foul, penetration and finish, and he's good at it. He had no luck against Gonzaga, and a lot of that was Chet Holmgren, his presence down low. So while Shabazz went for, I think, 27, he only made 10 of 25 shots. It took some launching to get to 27 points, and Bouye, I think, finished with 1 field goal. 5 points, that's just not his numbers. This is a kid who's probably going to get drafted. And so the Zags did a good job as primary defenders out there with Nembhard or Bolton, and probably more importantly with Chet, kind of anchoring that paint when people came inside. Did not put a very nice looking bow on that game. They turned it into a struggle. I think it got to 8 at one point. They were turning it over. They kind of stopped running their offense. They were milking time, it looked like to me a little bit, and kind of got out of their offensive rhythm. And I think USF had a couple of threes, good looks at threes to make it a 5-point game, and missed them. So that was the big difference the next night against St. Mary's, which was a pretty tight game, a great opponent. Zags played well down the stretch, pulled away with the backcourt of Nembhard and Bolton, and took care of business when that game was on the line.
Richard, you stressed the importance for a couple of weeks now of the tests that the Zags have received down the stretch. Santa Clara, and USF, and the Gales at the end of the regular season, the Dons and Gales at the tournament. The final spread against St. Mary's was 13, but the Gales kept the pressure on again and forced Gonzaga to find a different kind of way to win, didn't they?
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning. I mean, and I haven't gone back. I imagine there's probably a year where it's been similar, but this is the toughest home stretch I can remember Gonzaga having to endure. I mean, 6 of the last 7 games were against either NCAA tournament teams in USF and St. Mary's, or an IT team in Santa Clara. So just, I mean, to me, a fabulous way to end the year playing against postseason level teams. I thought the WCC tournament was just an ideal kind of experience for this team against San Francisco. To circle back to that, that's a real good reminder. You've got to play all 40 minutes when it comes to postseason basketball. You can't relax. This isn't a game in February. Teams are not going to stop until the game's over. And I think we saw that to Jim's point. Just, we seem to relax a little bit, thinking, well, we're up by whatever it was, 18-20. We've got this wrapped up, and San Francisco's going to keep playing. And then against St. Mary's, you have to be able to win in different ways over the course of this tournament. The way that you like to play is not how you're going to win every game, whether it be because you have an off night, an injury, or you play a really good opponent who's able to get you out of what you want to do. Can you find another way to win? And I thought we saw that against San Francisco. It was, Timmy and Holmgren inside. I mean, absolutely dominating the Dons front line. I mean, it didn't help, obviously, that what's the big kid's name? Masalski was out. Yeah, was out. But they went to work, and Holmgren defensively 6 blocks. But then you go to the St. Mary's game. St. Mary's they just have a way with how physical they are. They always have a body on Timmy in particular. And because they've got some size and just really smart players in their scheme, they're able to, I think, make Chet uncomfortable as he gets closer to the rim. So it becomes less effective as he tries to maybe make some plays around, in that painted area. But you saw Gonzaga's guards step up. I thought it was a great response from Strother after not having a good game against the Dons, but they had 53 points in the backcourt. And they just shot it really efficiently, 8 of 11 from 3. And this is the experience of the tournament. And I think for GU to understand, it's not always going to be Holmgren and Timmy. They've got a backcourt that can carry the ball for them for a game. I think that bodes well for them as they get into this deal.
Even if the Zags had lost to St. Mary's at the tournament, it wasn't going to be likely to drop them off the top line of the NCAA bracket, but winning solidified that number 1 seed and the chance to play close to home in Portland. The opponent, the Georgia State Panthers of Atlanta, third place finishers in the Sun Belt Conference during the regular season, but winners of their last 10, including the conference championship game coming into the NC2As. Their Panthers are making their 6th NC2A appearance in about a half century as a Division I program. And they've been a tough out on a couple of those occasions. In 2001, they took down Wisconsin in what was turned out to be Dick Bennett's retirement game from Wisconsin, 50-49, that until he surfaced a year or so later at Washington State. And in 2015, they scored the last 13 points of the game to beat Baylor in a 14-3 game. Ron Hunter was the coach that kind of turned Georgia State into a Sun Belt power. Now the program is headed up by Rob Lanier, cousin of NBA Hall of Famer Bob Lanier. I guess somebody better check out Rob's shoe size to verify that fact, see if he wears size 23s. But he's been around the block, assistant's jobs at Virginia, Florida, Texas, and Tennessee after taking Siena to the NC2As about 20 years ago. Jim, what else do we know about the Panthers?
Not a ton, but I do know they got red hot there the last month and a half of the season, won their last 10 games, won 12 of their last 13 games. And part of that is they got a kid eligible. I am not going to try to pronounce his name. He is 6'8" from Cincinnati transfer that really came in, gave them a huge presence in the middle. Block shots. I think he averaged close to 10 boards a game, scored it okay, 9-10 a game, and really solidified that because they've got a good guard line. Corey Allen, Justin Roberts. I think their top 3 scorers are all, either point guards, or wings. And with the big kid in the middle, they turned into a different team. A friend of mine sent me a message about Georgia State, and he was surprised where they were seated because when they were whole, when they had this presence in the middle, he thought they were more in the 14 seed range and a pretty capable team. They went to the Sun Belt tournament, I think is the 3rd seed. They beat the 2nd seed Appalachian State in the semis, and they beat Louisiana, number 8 seed, in the final. Louisiana took out the number 1 seed in that tournament. So I think they won 3 games in the tournament. The kid who was the MVP, this Corey Allen, 29 back-to-back nights in the semis and in the finals. I think he made 11 of 15 from 3, hit all 17 of his free throws. And that's kind of how they operate. Those guards are going to make plays. They have the ability to shoot some threes. And then the big kid in the middle kind of anchors everything. So I think a pretty capable team that's playing well and playing with confidence. We'll see if they can deal with Gonzaga, which is doing the same. I mean, I think they come in with some pretty good confidence from the WCC tournament. I think the guard line, the way they finished out the last game, Bolton and Nemhard, I think they're in a pretty good state of mind going into Thursday's game too.
We know just once in NC2A's history, since the bracket went to 64, has the 16 seed toppled the number 1, and that was in 2018, of course. UMBC shocking Virginia. And as wonderful a moment as that was for underdogs everywhere, if not for Virginia and Tony Bennett, there were some contributing factors. Virginia had lost DeAndre Hunter for that game. He was an eventual lottery pick to a wrist injury. And there were stylistic issues. I think Virginia's deliberate pace kind of kept the game close enough at halftime for UMBC to feel like it had a chance. And then when UMBC heated up from the field, the Cavaliers simply couldn't score. They didn't have the firepower to catch up, really, and continue to make it a game. Richard, those things kind of go away when you play Gonzaga. There's no there's no problem with the Zags catching up if they have to.
No, that's what Georgia State's going to want to do, slow down. They're really good defensively, top 15 in the country in steals or turnovers forced. They want to play at a really slow delivered pace. It's going to be a script we've seen before when you think about what Gonzaga sees more often than not in WCC play. And they're an older team. To Jim's point, they're led by their backcourt. They've got 3 guards that are all seniors, and now they've got the big kid who transferred from Cincinnati, who's playing at a high level. But I don't think they just don't have enough firepower. They can slow down as much as they want, but when you think about the amount of scoring Gonzaga has, my expectation would be, quite frankly, that maybe it's first 2-3 media timeouts, it feels a bit like a game, but once Gonzaga can start stretching it out to even 8, 10, 12 points, Georgia State just doesn't have enough firepower, in my opinion, to keep up. That's why they're a 16 seed and GU's a 1 seed. But these are the games that keep you up at night more than anything else. If you're up for every game, right? I mean, it's the NCAA tournament, win and go home, all that. But you're not worried about your team being up to play as you keep moving through the tournament. And while motivation will be there, Georgia State doesn't necessarily get the blood flowing in the same way as if you were playing Duke. So I'm sure GU's guys will be focused on all that, but this is one of those games, 1:15 in the afternoon. You have to create your own energy. I know there'll be a lot of GU fans there, but you've got to find a way to be ready to play from the jump. This isn't one of those games where you want to try to find that motor halfway through the first half or at halftime. Be ready to play from the tip, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. The Zags have been installed as 23.5-point favorites over the Panthers. And if that's not enough for Mark to allow Mark Few and the players to look beyond the first round, it's certainly enough for me. Gentlemen, let's look at the West region and part of the NCAA bracket and what's in store for Gonzaga after the first round. And I'm sure everyone knows from filling out their office pool, or at least looking at the bracket before they actually make their picks, that the very real possibility exists that the coach Mark Few will be shaking hands with in round 2 is none other than his old assistant Leon Rice, who brings his Boise State Broncos to Portland after winning the Mountain West regular season and tournament. The 23rd ranked Broncos as of this morning's AP poll, in fact. I remember a story out of Gonzaga's run in 2017 when Mark made it a point to bring back all his old assistants and Gonzaga coaching cronies like Dan Munson and Leon to share in the moment of being in the Final Four. And at one point they were in kind of a lull time. They were in Mark's hotel suite watching SportsCenter or CBS or something, and the Gonzaga name came up on the screen, and the announcers began talking about it, and kind of a hush fell over the hotel room there until Mark kind of unsheathed his needle and looked over at Leon and said, "Yeah, and I had to talk you I had to talk you into coming here from Yakima Valley." Leon wasn't going to leave his job there. I know the prospect of playing one of his friends like Leon or Tommy Lloyd possibly down the road isn't something Mark relishes. So, and there's a reason they don't get scheduled in the regular season, but there might be something more troubling, I guess. And if Boise loses in the first round, and the Zags have to play Memphis, which over the second half of the season has begun to fulfill some of its enormous potential. They'd won 12 of 13 until getting beat pretty soundly by Houston in the American Conference title game. The Tigers handled Alabama back in December, about 10 days after the Tide had done the same to Gonzaga, for whatever that's worth. Richard, who do the Zags want? Leon's club or Penny Hardaway's?
Well, I feel like if you play Boise State, it's like playing St. Mary's again.
Right, very much so.
They just have a very similar way of trying to control the tempo. They want to keep possessions down. They're very physical. You know, they're an older team that's played together for a long time. You know, the misnomer about Memphis is going into the year, given some of the high-profile recruits that they got, was that they were just a super young team. But if you look through their lineup, other than Durian now, because Bates has been out, I think, since end of January with the back injury.
Right.
They've got one other freshman they really rely on. I mean, this is a team that's got some experience. You know, so it's kind of pick your poison. I mean, do you want to play St. Mary, another game like St. Mary's, which is just going to be a dogfight, or do you want to play a style that's more up and down with a much higher level of athlete in Memphis? You know, I think I'd pick the latter. I'd want to just play. And I think our skill level, and combined with the athleticism that we have for GU, I think I'd be more inclined to want to play that game. But it's just remarkable in the tournament. I mean, you know, you get the benefit of being a number one, number two seed is you kind of do get a pass the first game. You get it to play somebody who really doesn't have the ability to keep it close or beat you, at least not very often. But the minute you win that game, now you've got a real team to play. And either way they go, they're going to present a unique challenge. But to answer your question, John, I think I'd rather play Memphis just because I know the game's going to be more up and down. And while they're very talented, they've not been in this position. While Gonzaga's got a number of guys who've been in these types of games before.
Jim, I'd like your thoughts on that too. But if we project Gonzaga making it through the weekend, there's another potential landmine in the Sweet 16 if the chalk holds, and that would be Arkansas. And the Razorbacks, kind of like Memphis, were as hot as any team in the country from mid-January to the 1st of March. And then on the other side of the West region, amazingly, are three teams Gonzaga's already played this year: Alabama, Texas Tech, and Duke. And that's kind of becoming a pattern, or at least a 2-year pattern, right?
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't remember that happening for a lot of years. And now it's repeat of the non-conference schedule when they get to the tournament. What was it last year? They had Kansas, Virginia, and Iowa, right? In their region. All three teams they beat and handled. And of course, they're the top overall seed. So you maybe expect, an easier path. This time they put them in with two teams that beat them on neutral floors. So maybe the committee got some guff about that a year ago and said, well, we'll throw them in there with teams that know how to beat them. I don't know, but it seems odd. There's so many good teams in that 2 through 4 range that they could maybe mix and match it a little better. But that kind of works both ways. I don't think the Zags would mind at all having a shot at Duke or Alabama again. Texas Tech, on the other hand, is they are a pain to play. They are going to guard you. They're going to shut down that paint. They're going to make you hit threes or jumpers, which is what the Zags did to beat them in Phoenix. And you want to talk about a rock fight? I think that was 69-55, and that was a tough game against a team that's playing way better now, way better than they were then. So, but they got to get there first. And you mentioned Arkansas. I think UConn is a real threat to be on the other side of the bracket if the Zags are still there. I've watched them play quite a bit in the Big East tournament, and they are really going to be a tough out. Arkansas is, you saw last year, this is a team that's capable of going to a Final Four. Very athletic, aggressive, and when they're shooting it, they are going to be a problem too. So I think that whole, I'm not so sure the West region it might be the first or second toughest. I think Kansas has the easiest region, but I think it even goes down further. I mean, when you look at Memphis as a 9, or Boise State is an 8. Boise State has the size inside. You saw that with when they beat San Diego State. They kind of do what St. Mary's did. They really body you up. They make you shoot over you in the post, keep you in front on the outside. 53-52. So I think those seeds all the way down to 9 are pretty solid in the West. Maybe the deepest region, if not the toughest challenge going through. And Zags are going to face some real tests early on if they keep advancing. It's going to be a tough road.
Richard, I kind of want your thoughts on the bracket strength too. I kind of agree with Jim. I think Kansas and the Midwest bracket is probably, relatively the easiest. I know the bottom end of that has a bunch of teams of note that have had some struggles here. I think Auburn is like 5-4 down the stretch, and USC obviously isn't a consistent performer. Wisconsin's had some trouble. Johnny Davis might not be 100%. And LSU doesn't have a coach, or doesn't have its coach that took them this far. Your feelings about Gonzaga's bracket, relative strength thereof?
Yeah, I would have picked Arizona's bracket as probably the lightest in the way of top name teams, but I think it's a bit semantics. I think it shapes up pretty well in my mind for GU in that all those teams that they've already played are on the bottom half of the bracket, right? So I just have to play one of them.
Yeah.
And all the teams that's just the nature of this deal. I mean, I'm not punting on the answer, but you got to beat good teams to keep winning, to keep playing.
Sure.
Like that's just how it works. So it really comes down to matchups, and we haven't done a deep dive necessarily in all these teams, but UConn. It's got a lot of talent, but they don't shoot it all that well. But then they rebound the ball really well in the offensive glass, and so that's the thing about the tournament is everybody you play has got a different style, strength, weakness, and again, I'm going to go back to that versatility. I think Gonzaga's got the ability to win in a handful of ways, which is what makes them such a tough out. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a region, I thought Arizona got a pretty nice bracket. Really, they got to play either Houston or Illinois, presuming that the top seeds hold to get to Elite Eight. And then, I mean, I've seen Villanova play a few different times. They don't necessarily scare me as far as they don't have a lot of size. They're just a very seasoned team that has been there before. But, Arizona's size up front is such a differentiating factor for them. I think it makes them difficult to beat. And then you couple that with the fact that they've got a lot of talent on the wing and size. It'll depend on if Kerr is healthy, their point guard twisted his ankle. If he can come back, maybe not the first game of the weekend, but, second round, I think they'll be fine. I'm not sure I see anybody in that region that can bother them in a meaningful way. But yeah, I'm with John, or Jim rather, the bottom half of this bracket is just a beast, and you just don't see that this often. But the benefit of being at the top end of the bracket is I just got to play one of them. And I would imagine if you did like a blind poll for GU's players, they all want to play Duke again. They want that rematch, and that would be a heck of an Elite Eight.
Well, it's time for the question that everybody asks, not just this time of year, but generally as soon as the previous season is over with. Will this be the year for Gonzaga, by which we mean, of course, to win it all? The odds makers like them again. We've heard from guys like Drew Timme about the determination that took hold after coming up short in the championship game against Baylor last year. And we know that the Zags are exactly one player deeper up front, and that player is a potential game changer, Chet Holmgren. I've probably been as nitpicky about these Zags as any. And while maybe I'm not wholly convinced, I also kind of like their chances better for one simple reason. I had the feeling pretty much all last year that Baylor was a bad matchup for them and the better team than Gonzaga, and maybe the only team in the whole field that could take them down. This year, there's probably any number of teams that could do that, but none that I think would do it 7 out of 10 times, which is the feeling I got after watching Baylor last year. There are more potholes, but none of them seem like the deep, dark abyss. Jim, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the tournament itself, there's more contenders this year. I think it's closer together in the top 8 or 10, 12 maybe. Yeah, I mean, I could see a team like Tennessee, who's a 3 seed, great defensive team, making a Final Four. I can see Texas making a run. I know they've been up and down, but they have personnel, they have inside, outside experience. But, again, the Zags are the overall seed, top overall seed. They're favored, by the odds makers. They've played a really good non-conference schedule with 5 ranked teams. They've played in the WC that had its best year in 3 or 4 decades. I think they're as well prepared as you can get. And I think the biggest single difference from this year to last year is that ability to alter shots and block shots in the paint with Chet Holmgren, and his 3-point shooting ability as well. I mean, he's a 42% shooter or something from outside. I think that's the biggest single factor, but you say that and you feel like you're overlooking. I think Drew Timme led the NCAA tournament in scoring last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a capable of 30-point nights every time out. And then you've got guard play that, over 230, 40 games in college, not all in Gonzaga uniforms, but Andrew Nembhard started the national championship game. Played great against UCLA in the semis. So, I mean, there's a lot of experience in their first 4 or 5 guys. Anton coming off the bench. They do have a lot of ways they can beat you. I think they're motivated. And, it is kind of that lingering question. You heard all the analysts when they were picking their Final Four and champions. A lot of them picked Arizona over Gonzaga, but a lot of them picked Gonzaga and just said, I feel like it's time.
Yeah.
And I think that might be more accurate than we all think. I think it might be their time.
Richard, your feeling, is it their time?
Yeah, I would agree. There's something about this team that's a little bit different, and I think it's about Holmgren. I agree with you, John. There was Baylor just was an awful matchup for GU. I think about the impact of COVID in all kinds of different ways, but you think about that team with Tilly that didn't get to play here in Spokane.
Yeah.
And how this, no one ever talks about that, but that was a number 1 seed too. And then I think about the fact that Baylor game got canceled because of COVID in the regular season. And what would that have done for GU had they been able to experience what Baylor was last year before that national championship game? I think the outcome may not have been different, but certainly the game would have been more competitive. There was something about Baylor was just so physical and tough. We hadn't seen that at all. And I think when they had 2 or 3 offensive rebounds on their first possession, they just manhandled us in a way that we hadn't seen. I don't know if there's a team like that this year. Baylor, despite being a number 1 seed, is not the same team they were last year with their physicality and what they can do around the rim. And they don't have, in my opinion, the same level of guard play that they did last year. I think it's difficult. It's going to be difficult to have it. It's going to be difficult for someone to create the type of matchup that's going to give Gonzaga problems. But if I am trying to think about what could give Gonzaga challenges, I think it is Arizona with, their ability to play Ballo and Koloko up front. It is Auburn with Kessler and Smith up front.
Smith.
Yeah. Teams that have 2 high-level post players that can play with and against Holmgren and Timme and not concede a big advantage. Duke has that too with Williams and Ballo.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm interested in. And then it comes down to your guards. And we certainly have a lot of experience, but we don't necessarily have a ton of depth in that backcourt. When it really matters, Mark's going to play the 3 starters, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And so those guys are going to have to play well. But yeah, I think Holmgren's the difference. We've never had a guy like that. As good as the run of post players has been the last decade, he is just different. And his ability to impact the games on both ends versus, say, a guy like Olynyk, who was so good offensively and not a bad defender, but didn't necessarily have that same impact, or just keep, Wiltshire, offensive guy, not doing a lot defensively. Clark, more defense, but less offense. Chet is elite on both ends, and he covers a lot of mistakes up on both ends. I think he's the difference, and I think that's why this year they win it.
Well, that's not the final word on Gonzaga basketball, but it's going to have to be the final word for today. Before we go, let's acknowledge the Gonzaga women winning the WCC tournament and the automatic bid that goes with it. They'll play on Friday in their tournament as the number 9 seed in the Wichita region against number 8 seed Nebraska. I'd like to acknowledge the steady hand of Jesse Tinsley, who had some nice visual touches to distract you from the not so nice visual touches of this broadcast, and does whatever surgery that needs to be done afterwards to get it posted. Remember, the Zags play Thursday in Portland at 1:15 p.m. Pacific time against Georgia State in the first round. That'll do it for Richard Fox, Jim Meehan, and myself, John Blanchette, and this edition of Zags Basketball Insiders. Enjoy the tournament.